Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Action Sports Podcast. Really excited about today's episode. This guest, I looked at a picture, and this is how I found you. Actually, I was actually scrolling through some posts on IG, and I did come across something with Cameron, Cameron Neiman,
Nimala.
Nila. Okay, Nila. That's
Yep.
right. So I was looking at Cameron and I was like, wait a minute, who are all these other guys? And so then I started diving into different YouTubes, and that's kind of how I came across yours. And I was like, okay. So then I looked over at your social account and I was like, wow, this is fascinating. So everybody, I
hmm
have Greg Hitchko. That's right, Hitchko.
Hitchko. Yep.
Hitchko,
Like
right?
trailer hitch with KO at the end. So
Yeah,
Hitchko.
exactly.
Yep.
Knockout. Hitch
Nailed it.
knockout.
A lot of people say Hitchcock, but I don't know how you end up with the CK at the end of it if you
Right.
don't actually, if you're looking at it. I don't get it. But anyway,
Previously you were known as what? Gitch? Gitch 226?
yes, I was.
Yeah, Gitch
That's good.
226. Yeah. So
hmm
those that may know him as Gitch, which I highly doubt anybody knows him as Gitch anymore, but
Only my close friends from
yeah, Mr.
OG
Mr.
friends.
Greg, he's growing this really big social account. He's in the moto industry, and there was something that he's been very different, unique on is he's been doing a lot of rebuilds or a lot of builds, bike builds, specifically on two strokes and a little bit older models, early 2000s, maybe late 90s, early 2000s. A couple newer ones, maybe a couple older ones than that, but the primary ones have, to my perspective, have been that. And so wanted to have him come on the podcast today and really give us a good glimpse of his lifestyle, starting up kind of in the industry and getting his feet wet, pushing more towards the YouTube stuff and really wanting to build this lifestyle in the YouTube industry, but also being actually pretty well known in the MX industry. So, Greg, stoked that you're here and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I
100%.
always love coming on podcasts and do. I think one of the biggest things is just I'm a fan of the sport and
Mm-hmm.
just wanting to be a part of it in any way that I can. So yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Thanks.
hmm
Now, being something that you love being part of the industry, you've been on a couple podcasts. You just touched on that. You've been on
Yep.
two other podcasts or more.
Yep. Two.
Okay, cool.
Well, one's a podcast, Big MX Radio
Yep.
with Brad Gebhardt, and then one I did. I was a part of a judging panel with Cameron Nimala on his yearly bike build contest.
Oh, I never come across that one.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
looking, I was
Well,
scouting the internet.
I guess it's more on his YouTube as well. So
Okay. Yeah. So it would have had to been it would have been a CEO or SEO, not CEO, an
yeah.
SEO pickup if I Googled that to find that.
hmm
So it didn't show up, but it
Interesting.
was still cool to actually see you with a group of other dudes because I haven't known Cameron, but I've followed Cameron probably like you. I have been following Cameron maybe for 6 years or so, between 4 and 6, just not
hmm
regularly,
Yeah.
but I have been following him. So it's kind of cool to actually see somebody like you enter that space and then actually start doing some work with him as well. I'm
Yeah. I
curious.
mean, it's kind of crazy how it all happened. So I actually haven't been following him that long. It was
Hmm.
only 2019 when I came across his YouTube channel,
No
actually.
joke.
Yep. I had gotten out of dirt bikes for a while. I had then got into Harleys and
Yeah, stunting.
back I did wheelie a Harley. So
Yes.
then I got a dirt bike again in 2018 and it was a four stroke. It was like the fall of 2019. I was bored sitting on the couch at home on YouTube and races were over. Supercross, wasn't starting up yet. So I was looking for something cool to watch. And I think one of Cameron's videos got pushed as a suggestion and I came across them and I was like, wow, this guy is doing some really cool stuff. And then it got me thinking, I love two strokes. And I was like, why can't I do something like that? And obviously when you're watching it on YouTube, it looks super easy, really inviting as something that you can
And
do
quick and it's
and
fast.
and quick and fast. And it just
Yeah.
hits you all right away with all these feels. And I'm like, I love what he's doing. Maybe I could do that. So I didn't come across Cameron until 2019, and then everything
Hmm.
kind of just sparked from there.
That is fascinating because
Yeah,
you can go back and look and you kind of see where your startup was 2020, 2019, 2020.
yeah,
That's when your Instagram had a shift. Like you've had a couple shifts throughout your IG account where it was like uh fun lifestyle to just street stuff, just hardcore street stuff. You got part of what was it called? The NY Rider
It
Bombers, something
was
like that.
so from upstate New
Gang.
York, and I had a group of Harley riders, and we
Mm-hmm.
created a page called the NY Dyna Bombers.
Dyna Bombers, that's right,
Yep,
Dyna
yep.
Bombers.
So
Yeah.
we were into the Harley, dynas, and yep,
So you do have like this cool fun progression of just like the different things throughout your
yeah,
life. The very interest, and that's what I love about IG is like it's a scrapbook for a lot of people,
hmm,
and you can go back and look like, oh, this is the era, this is the type of things that I was doing, this is what I was into. You had long hair,
oh
right? You
yeah,
blowing in the
down to my
wind.
shoulders, yep,
Yeah, right. Blonde
bleach
hair.
blonde, yep,
Yeah, for those that haven't seen Greg, he kind of I can't tell, but do you have blue eyes, right?
yeah, you
Yeah,
can't tell
Viking.
them
This
in the
dude looks
video,
reminds me
yep,
of Vikings. Just like blonde hair, big built dude. CrossFit for a season, just heavy into CrossFit or heavy
oh yeah,
into
up in Park
athletic
City,
stuff,
yep,
competitions, and then the dirt bike industry kind of came back into your
yeah,
life. Well, of course, you had your wife, fiance, then married her, and you guys kind of shared a little bit of that passion. And I'm assuming you guys met. I could be wrong, but did you guys meet while you were living in Utah?
yes, yep,
Okay.
hmm,
So there was that passion of the outdoors because Utah does that to people. Like
yeah,
Utah is
it's
very
addicting,
outdoors like.
it really is,
So you guys are out riding bikes now, and then the you came across his channel, right? So you were introduced to that, and that's kind of where that
hmm,
next blip in your life for the last 2 years. Why even jump into it? Why jump into doing something? I'm not going to say something similar to Cameron because I feel like Cameron still does it differently. Um, but why even get into the building of bikes or even the rebuilding of these older bikes at all? Like, why even try?
yeah. So I feel like this is going to be a long story, so I'm going to
We
try
got
to
a couple
short.
minutes, so we're good.
I'm going to try to shorten it up as much as possible. So I have a finance and accounting background. I don't have a background in creative content or filming or editing or even being on camera or anything like that. As a little kid growing up in school, my face would get beet red every time I would have to speak to the class. Even sitting at my desk, like if the teacher called on me, like I'd always be the kid with the head down, like don't call me, and then they'd call me, and my face would just get beet red. So it's definitely something outside of my comfort zone. And I was in a comfortable position at my current job, and I was like, I'm just looking for something more. Like, just wasn't completely thrilled with what I was doing. It was getting the job done, but I wasn't like thrilled about where my life was going. So I came across Cameron, and kind of like I mentioned earlier, I was like, man, it looks like something that I could do. It looks like really fun. I ended up just really working at that while I was still at my other job. And I've always had the passion for dirt bikes. I grew up with a competitive background playing hockey and lacrosse. When I stopped playing hockey and lacrosse at Division One level, then I started racing dirt bikes. So I didn't race dirt bikes until later in my life, I guess, late teens, early 20s. So it's just been this biggest passion of mine. And, people always talk about trying to find a job where you wake up every day and it doesn't feel like work. That's really what I tried to make out of this, starting really from the ground up.
So you're confident to say that when you wake up, you're like your feet hit the ground, you're excited to get out into the garage.
I think about dirt bikes 24/7, 365.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's just one of those things where I've had this passion about it and for it, and I just really wanted to make something of it. It's not the easiest thing to do, but yeah, it's something that I completely love. And I think that's one of the biggest things. You have to love it in order to do it.
Yeah, I get that. I can totally see that because I think a lot of people they have a drive, like a passion for what they want to do, but I don't think
Yeah.
it's enough that they'll actually stop what they're doing and just dive into it. I don't think there's
Mm-hmm.
enough people that really do it. And at that point, did you feel that, it was kind of a risky move to like jump into it and leave your job and come do something like this? Because now you're an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
You are a content creator. You don't work for anybody except for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to create your own content. Like you said at the very early on, like you have to be the one filming. You have to be the one doing the work. You have to be the one with the knowledge to do the rebuilds and have the tools to do it. So you wear a
Yeah.
lot of hats. Now, a lot of people find that to be kind of a risky move. How did you calculate that? How did you calculate leaving your job that you had a consistent income to go into something that potentially there was a risk?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, my wife is actually the one that was telling me to leave my job long before I actually did, because one of the only ways to be successful at something like this, or just even anything entrepreneurial, is to go all in, and be 100% engulfed into it, because there's a lot of things like family that come into play too. And, if you're working that normal 9 to 5 job and then trying to hustle and create your own business, I guess you're going to have to do that for a little while. But in order to live this balanced life, you're going to have to make a sacrifice here or there. So it's either, your job where you feel comfortable, or you're sacrificing family. And it just came to a point where I didn't want to sacrifice, time with my family. We're very fortunate. My wife crushes it as well. We just had a baby back in January, so he's a little bit over 8 months old.
So that's two then. You have two kids?
Just one kid.
Okay. Man.
Yep, just one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, long before we had him, I went full time on it. But then once we had Griffin, my son, it was like, well, we can either pay a nanny, or we can have you raise our child. So a lot of people don't know is actually I'm a full time dad as well. So along with creating my own business, it's a hard balance. But at the end of the day, I'd rather be the one raising our child. But yeah, there's just a lot that goes into it.
I like that dad perspective, and I totally screwed
Yeah.
up the age because as I came across a picture of your son sitting on the bike behind you,
Yep.
and he has like this full mouth of teeth, and I was like, he's not 8 months old. There's no way he's eight
he's
months old. Yeah,
he's had 8 teeth for a couple months now.
because I have a 5 month old, and I don't think he's growing teeth yet. I don't know. I get to look in that little dude's mouth and see what's going on. But yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm like really confused. I'm like, wait a minute, he can't be that old. Thinking it was like maybe a sibling's kid or something like that.
Yeah. But long story short, I mean, you have to make sure that, your family is financially comfortable in order to go out and, be able to start a business like this. There's trade-offs, there's hard decisions that you need to make. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you not willing to sacrifice in order to go all in? And I was the one that was hesitant of going all in at first, because, as humans, we just want to be supporters of our family. So I wanted to make sure that I was in a position to be able to support my family in all ways that I could before going in on the business.
I want to pick a couple of things apart on that. I think is really cool. For number one, people listening, what Greg is really picking apart in like success is you got to go all in, right? There's always going to be the thought of risk and what if it doesn't work? But when you have somebody like Greg's wife, Sam, right?
Yes, Sam.
When you have somebody like Sam backing you up and saying, "Hey, you got this and I believe in you." Once you actually have somebody that believes in you,
Mm-hmm.
man, there's nothing that can hold you back because you're able and the cool thing is we're capable of doing so much more than what we believe we can. And it's little nudges from those that believe in us that actually give us that confidence. And truth be told, it might not work. It very may well not work. But do you want to really go through your life and say, I had these ideas and these thoughts and I just didn't give in. I didn't do them because I was too scared and
Yeah.
then regret that. Like, oh, what if things could have been completely different? And coming from the financial background, you completely understand what risk is in the industry, in the financial industry. You understand mitigation of risk. And so it can be a big key factor of actually, should we dive into it or not? But you had a catalyst in your life, which I think is really key to the progression and actually being successful. Like, I think a lot of people think, oh, well, being a stay-at-home dad is not cool or whatever. Honestly, I think I think it's personally, I think it's a beautiful thing to actually see a dad take care of his kids because there's a bond that's created. There's always going to be a bond between a kid and a mom. I've never been able to understand how I can get the same bond, and I never will be able to get the same bond as my kids do with my wife. But there's a bond between a father and a child, son or daughter, doesn't matter, that can be curated and become very, very special.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool that you're doing that, Greg, and that you've taken the time and your wife's been pushing you to kind of accomplish those two things. So, dude, you're doing a great job.
Thank
Congratulations
you.
on that.
Yeah, it's a an interesting dynamic. We had a part-time nanny for a while where she was able to help us out for a couple days a week. So I could really, get in the garage and work on bikes, film, etc. And she just had to put in her 2 weeks about a month and a half ago now. And it was great to have her, but it was actually harder for me to focus on those 2 days that we had her, knowing that those were like really my 2 days to get a bunch of work done. But now when I'm watching him full time, I have a better set schedule basically around his nap times. So I know what I have to get done when he's down sleeping. And otherwise, you have to be, like you said, like I said earlier, you have to be 100% into whatever you're doing. So when I'm watching him, I'm 100% watching him. I try not to have any other distractions come up when I'm watching him. And it's likewise when I'm doing the work too. Otherwise, you're not going to be present in the moment. And I think that's one of the most important things too. So now that I watch him full time, I'm able to get a stricter schedule on myself and stick
Mhm.
to that. And I find myself getting more work done watching him rather than not watching him. It's crazy.
Yeah, I love it, dude. I love this
Yeah.
mindset that you have. I think it's definitely important for people to kind of hear that and understand, okay, well, Greg, he's this influencer on social media. He's building this YouTube account, like just to kind of hear this mindset, because this is what it takes to get to there.
Mhm.
Let's get it. I want to get into just a little bit of a question that a lot of people have. With what you're creating with social media, do you actually make a return on your investment at all?
I do.
Good.
Yep. Yeah.
How,
I'm both.
when was the very first time that you actually received a check or something going into your bank account?
About a year ago, maybe.
Okay.
And that was from YouTube.
How'd you feel that day? Walk us through how you felt.
Oh, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, to make money at doing something that you love. I guess really the idea is to how people get rich is to make money while you're asleep. And it was just that concept that I was like, man, people all around the world are watching content, while I'm sleeping, and I'm able to make money from it, which was a really humbling feeling, I guess.
So then is you find it addicting?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
It's yes, the money is a motivator, but it's almost like the more I create, the more I want to create. I feel like the way I look at it is I try to market to myself because I'm such a big fan of the sport. I try to put out content that I would want to see. And one of the biggest things in order to grow on YouTube or social media is putting out content that people want to see and really sticking and really diving down into a specific niche. So what I do with dirt bikes is pretty simple. I mean, anything that I post is going to be about dirt bikes and really what those people in the industry want to see. So I think that's one of the things that if you're trying to get into this space, you really need to focus on and try to find your niche about what you do. So for me, it's dirt bikes, but it's not only dirt bikes, it's two-stroke dirt bikes as well. So you don't really see me posting much about four-stroke dirt bikes, even though there is a market for that. My audience is really knows me as a two-stroke guy, and that's one of the ways to really dive down into really understanding what you're doing and growing from there.
mm, I love it. So you get in like you narrow your niche even enough
Exactly.
that you know it thoroughly to be able to answer questions and help a lot of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
like that, dude. I think
Yeah, and
that's
that
really
was
important.
and one of the reasons why I started doing what I was doing is because I just want to be able to give back. So
Mm,
I'm still that guy that reaches out to so many people to just try to learn and ask questions. Like I don't know everything about this machine behind me.
mm,
I know a lot about it. I don't know everything about it. But when I have a question, I'm the first one to reach out to someone on Instagram or maybe like email or like a Vital MX form or something like that to try to figure out how to do something. It was just one of those things where I'm able to give back to the community from what I've learned from other people. And that's what's really addicting too, is being able to help people, being able to put out how-to videos on YouTube and have people comment being like, this is amazing. Like, this is exactly what I was looking for. Outside of Google, YouTube is the world's second largest search engine. And do you know who owns YouTube?
Google.
Google. So, I mean, if you don't know something, the first thing you're doing is typing into Google, how to how to make a pie crust for like apple pie or something like that,
Right.
But it's the
Food
same thing,
analogies.
right? It's the same thing with dirt bikes. It can be something as simple as, how to change an oil in a KX100 or how to rebuild an engine on a KX250. Same thing. And that's kind of the reason behind it is try to create content that's educational and isn't going anywhere, really. It's stuff that people are always going to be looking up. That's constantly going to be getting hits, and it's stuff that's going to help people along the way. And don't get me wrong, there's stuff that I do for entertainment purposes as well. But then there's also things that I do that are strictly, how to based to target both markets, I guess.
Interesting. And so you're finding your crowd, your audience to be individuals wanting to do their own bike, or is it to just consume your content?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
There are plenty of YouTube pages out there strictly for entertainment, and that's great and it works for them. But I also, like I said, want to be able to serve the dirt bike community as well by sharing my knowledge for everybody that's helped me learn. And I'm still learning to this day. I mean, I'm still asking, people questions, and
Sure.
that's one of the things that gets me motivated for sure.
One of the thoughts that I've had, because I considered starting up a pretty cool business, an online business, doing similar what you're doing. I've been thinking about this for a few years. I don't think I'll ever pull the trigger on it because for me, my background's as a mechanic, so I actually went to MMI and became a mechanic. I know how to work on every bike, Harleys,
Yeah.
whatever. And for me, it doesn't make sense to go into it because I don't wake up like invigorated about it. Not anymore. I did at a time, but
Yep.
definitely not anymore. And probably that time I should have jumped on it because then would have probably been done really well. My question though, or my thought process was, if I buy, say, I go buy a KX250 and I'm going to go through the whole motor, the whole suspension, chassis, just take care of everything, redo it all. Am I going to be providing value to only those that have this specific bike? Because the variation of the years also changed, different locations of certain things inside the motor with the crankcases where they may have moved a couple of things inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
They've used different size shafts. The clutching could be a little bit different. We have bigger baskets or smaller baskets. So there's going to be a variety of different things. So would I be building content specifically to, say, a 2002 KX250 crowd, or am I going to be building content to the whole dirt bike community? Have you, like, your thoughts on that? Is it been just as a general to the whole community, or has it been to like a very specific, these are the only owners of these bikes, so this is what I want to build for those owners?
That's actually a great question. And we talked about it earlier a little bit, kind of narrowing that niche and really niching down. It's something that I actually don't have the answer to yet that I'm still experimenting with.
Oh, okay.
So I've thought about, what if I just take this 99 KX250 behind me? So this generation is, 99 to 2002. I know the motors are similar for a few years back as well. But a part of me is like, well, if you know how to work on this bike, I can go buy a Honda and work on the Honda. I can go buy a Yamaha and work on a Yamaha because you have that base knowledge. Kind of like you said, once you get into the motor, things are a little bit different. You're going to have the torque specs are going to be different. Those aren't going to be the same. But that's where the manual comes into play. I reference the manual a lot in what I do, outside of just my knowledge, because I can't remember what the torque should be on the primary drive shaft nut. So, but yeah, it's something that I'd like to experiment with as well. Maybe really niching down onto one motorcycle, because I do take a YouTube class. It's actually called Think Media. So
Oh,
if you
cool.
guys,
Think Media.
oh yeah,
What's that guy's name? Who?
John Cannell.
Yeah, I know who you're talking. Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. There's
Yeah.
another
So
company. Yeah, cool.
yep.
Good
So
guys.
yeah, I mean those guys are kind of like my YouTube mentor, and in order to be successful in this space, you really need to niche down. So I've niched down enough to the two-stroke space, but the next question is, well, do I really niche down to just maybe be, a Kawasaki two-stroke guy, or
Mhm.
do I niche down even deeper into be a 99 to '02 Kawasaki guy, or '03 to '07? So, or again at 85s. It's one of those things where I'm still experimenting with, and their idea, the more you niche down, the more you can actually find those true not just true fans, but the true people that actually are looking for help.
Yeah, looking for those how-to videos, looking for those very specific things.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. Like I said, that was something I've thought, and I believe other people do have that question. Is like, okay, you can go literally, you can Google 1999 KX250,
Hmm.
2002 KX250, and you can practically find anything you need to learn about it. But I haven't really seen yet just like one place doing it all. Rocky Mountain ATV does a pretty good job with a lot of stuff like that. Very
Right.
similar. But they cover a whole lot of different stuff. So
Hmm.
it would take some time to sift through. You'd literally be just Googling it quite a bit. And Rocky Mountain's a big supporter of you, right?
Yeah.
You know those
Yeah.
guys pretty well.
Yeah. Those guys
So
are awesome over there. Very
mm,
fortunate to have them a part of the team.
yeah. And it's cool to have somebody back like that, backing you up like that. So I love that.
Yeah.
Let's dive into your past for just a minute. The Dyna Bombers. Man, what was the push for that? What was the push of getting a Harley and really becoming this becoming a dude on the street all the time? You've
Um,
had like six Harleys, so
yeah, how many have I had? I had a Sportster,
mhm.
Street Bob. I'm losing track of
Yeah,
all of
you've had
them,
a
but
couple. You've had a
I had a road.
Dynaglide. You've had
Yep, I
the
had a 03 Super Glide. And
Super Glide.
before that, I had a 2016 Road Glide.
Yep, Road
Uh,
Glide.
but
Harley,
yeah,
yes.
it got to a point where after racing dirt bikes week in and week out, it was, when you do something for a long time, it just kind of gets stale, Wasn't riding as much as I wanted to at the end of it. A way to get out and ride and still fulfill that kind of like daredevil thing that everybody needs, that they try to fulfill when they get on two wheels, was getting a Harley and getting out on the road. I told myself that I would never ride on the road.
Oh, interesting.
Then Sons of Anarchy came along, and that was kind of the end of that. So I was like, okay, well, maybe if I am going to ride on the road, I'll get into the Harley scene. Yeah, my buddy had been riding on the road. One of my best friends growing up, I rode dirt bikes with. He rode on the road for a long time, and we ended up getting Harleys together. And then just a group of us where I was living at the time in upstate New York had a bunch of Harleys, and what better idea to have than try to wheelie them? So we
Yeah.
kind of like formed this little group, and it was maybe that was the beginning of starting this, social media, thing. That was like a behind the scenes look at what was going to happen, down the
Yeah.
road.
I would definitely say because like for many years you had a ton of content wrapped around again back to what we were saying dirt or riding your Harley. You had some dirt bike pictures in there,
Yeah.
videos, mostly pictures, and then you
Hmm.
had some CrossFit. You got into the CrossFit scene for quite some time.
Yeah.
So you posted a lot about CrossFit, but it was Harleys, lots and lots and lots of stuff about Harleys. You even got into Indian a little bit, just showing some pictures of them. But yeah, it was a lot of content. And then there was like a gap between 2000, I'd say 2018-ish, 2000, end of 2017 till about 2020. It really mellowed out quite a bit
Hmm.
where it wasn't your like literally day, every single day posting. It was quite a bit less, but there was a big era of your life where it was just ride bikes, ride bikes, ride bikes. And so yeah, you could totally see that passion of yours of the industry, and then you were able to find a different niche that you really enjoyed, and now
Yeah.
you're creating content regularly, just exploding, doing very,
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah. It was always, I always loved dirt bikes. The love for dirt bikes never went away, but it was just finding, because I mean, I'm obsessed with watching the motocross and supercross series. So I mean, that was the big thing at the time. It's hard to do something as well, like ride dirt bikes just by yourself. I didn't really have friends that were doing it at the time, so that's kind of why I got out of dirt bikes. But always was obsessing about watching the races and learning and finding out, watching the post race interviews and all of that. So a lot of what I do now is because I wanted to be on the other side of the curtain, so to speak. I didn't
Mm.
want to be the guy on the side of the fence where all the fans were. I wanted to be on the other side of the fence, kind of in the back end of the industry. That's something that also motivates me as well, is to try to be an insider, I guess you would say, instead of just being an outsider looking out to in.
I like it. I think it's a great
Yeah.
idea. And in fact, the podcast for me has done that.
Yeah.
Where I just had a guy named Rob Alford. He's really, really well known in the snowmobile industry.
Mhm.
Just start following me on social media. He's big account, big.
Yeah.
Like I said, big name in the snowmobile world. Like
Hmm.
you can say his name, Rob Alford. Like, oh, I know Rob. well, know
Yeah.
of him. And like, yeah, just the last week he started following on IG, and I was like, oh, I'm on the inside crew now. Like, I'm cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, I don't know whether it's ego or just like, it just makes me feel more a part of it rather than just like someone
Yeah, it
looking
makes you feel
from
like
on
a
the
somebody.
outside. Yeah.
Hmm. I don't, I don't know. Let's think about that. Do you think, would you think it's an ego thing? Because this is very important in our industry where people want that, but they don't,
Yeah.
they like, how hard are they willing to go after it?
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of
I
people
mean,
really push themselves for it.
so, I mean, what I do is awesome. Don't get me wrong. But, a lot of people working in the garage and working on dirt bikes is an escape for them. They're able to just go in there, kind of put their head down, throw in a podcast, throw on their favorite tunes like Blink 182 or whatever.
Yeah.
Not a plug for Blink 182, but
Old band.
being flipping the switch and being a creator now, I'm not able to just get in the garage and just really veg out and enjoy that time with myself. It's really hard to get in the garage, find that motivation to film. It's a weird dynamic where I didn't think that would be the case, where, sometimes I find myself not getting into the garage because I need to be in the right headspace in order to film something. It's really hard to, set up the camera, set up the lights, find that motivation to talk about what you're doing in a sense, rather than just going out there and changing the set of handlebars. Like I said earlier, talking about Cameron's videos, he was one that really motivated me. And not until I actually got a camera and started figuring out how to do it and how much work it actually takes just to like film, even changing a set of grips or changing a tire and making it look cool, producing it, like how there's a lot that goes into it that I don't think people realize. And I've had a ton of people say, I would love to do what you're doing. Like, I'm going to go make my own videos. And then maybe they make one video and that's it. I never see another video from them, or they say they're going to make videos and just never do it. And I think that's where people don't realize that it's all glitz and glam when I post the YouTube video, but there's a lot that goes behind the scene. And I'm not complaining because it's amazing, but there's just a lot that goes behind the scene in order to produce something like that. I mean, that's the finished product. Like just recently, actually, I probably put out one of my easiest videos that I've ever made. It was installing this purple gut seat cover behind me. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try something different because a lot of my videos are really edited to make it look pretty. And, I cut out a lot of like the lag time. I was like, I'm going to, because putting on a seat cover for me doesn't take a lot of time. So I was like, I'm just going to let the camera roll and I'm going to talk through the process. And I'm not going to move the camera around. I'm just going to sit here and let the camera film me. And I'm just going to do my thing. So people actually get a real sense of like what it takes to do something on a dirt bike. But for
Mhm.
me, it was probably one of the easiest videos that I made because I wasn't moving the camera around to get the different angles of how I would, how to put the seat cover on and everything. I just put the camera in front of me and just put the seat cover on. I do have another video where I go in depth and get great camera angles of installing the seat cover, but it was just something different that I wanted to try in order to just have a different perspective for people as well. But that's probably one of the things that I say that people don't realize is the hardest is getting into the garage isn't as, I guess, stress relieving as it should be for some things, for some people. I mean, working on a dirt bike can bring you a lot of stress. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you know how it goes. I mean, something that should take 30 seconds ends up taking a half hour sometimes. It's just one of those things where not as easy just to get in the garage and work on a dirt bike anymore. And that's something that I miss.
What motivates you then?
Like I said earlier, to be able to give back to the community because I feel not that I feel bad when I ask people about how to do things, but I just want to be able to give that return to people, to all those people who have helped me. And when I see a comment on a video like, man, this really helped me out, or I mean, I didn't look at it this way, or one of my videos that is really successful is how to install fork seals without the actual tool.
Yeah, I
And
saw
just
that.
yeah, so you just use some electrical tape, long story short, and just it's not the most ideal way you want to install a fork seal, don't get me wrong, but if you're in a pinch and don't have the tool, let's say, you're at a race on Saturday and you have a race Sunday and your fork seals are leaking and you don't have the tool to do it, you're able to get those new fork seals in and be at the race the next day. So I've saved so many people in that type of situation, or people like me who just don't want to spend the money on a tool either and want to be cheap. So that's one of the reasons why, that's one of the main reasons why I do it, is just to see like the positive comments that I'm helping people.
You seem to be getting a lot of that.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, there is plenty
Eh,
of negative feedback, but it's all good because the more people comment, the better the YouTube algorithm is going to pick it up, because whether it's a positive or negative comment, YouTube sees it as people engaging, which is great. So if you guys have negative comments, leave those as well.
that's right. Yeah. So, I mean, what they say? Media, what do they say? It says media, good or bad, doesn't matter. Coverage, something like that. There's always going to be those negative people. Man, I'm just looking at one right now. It's just even somebody advertising porn on your site. That sucks.
Yeah, it's like a lot
Weird
of
people.
like spam
Yeah.
messages. Yeah.
I'm really fed up with that kind of stuff. It's getting worse. It's getting a
Yeah.
lot worse. Ugh. But it's funny. When I had Brad on with B Rad, like we went through some of his comments and it was so funny.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Just the terrible things people will say. Like they were telling him that he should never ride again. They're just like, you're the worst rider I've ever seen. You should probably get rid of that bike.
Oh
That's not
yeah.
how you're supposed to ride. It was just ripping into him. I've been riding for my entire life and I've never seen something like that ever happen. And come to find out when I was talking to him about it, he's like, dude, those videos, all that stuff that I was doing that people were commenting really nasty things, that was all done on purpose. People just didn't get it. And he would reply and just kind of bash into people too. Brad's a really
Oh
smart
yeah.
dude. So
Yep.
it was really funny to get his perspective and learn about what he does or why he did what he did and how people would just fight. But he's actually a very similar story where he did a lot of street stuff. He did a ton of street stuff
Mhm.
before he got in really head into the off-road stuff. But
Yeah.
tons of street bikes, tons of street bike riding, and very talented, very skilled
He's a
rider.
talented rider. Yeah.
I mean, you're now you were living in Utah. You're now you said in the South.
Yeah. Northern Mississippi. We're just south of Memphis right now.
Oh, okay, cool.
Hmm.
So to wrap up, what it has been like the relationship between you and Rocky Mountain ATV? Like, how did that even start?
Yeah. So I think the brands that I work with are brands that I've used for years, really, and ones that I feel like I have a personal connection to as well because I've used them. So in order to I really land, but have a relationship like this, like I do with Rocky Mountain, just doesn't happen overnight, so to speak. So I mean, you're not going to go out there. If you're someone listening to this, you're not going to go out there and find a beat up bike on Craigslist and say that you're going to have a video series on it and do a bike build series on it and expect to get sponsorship, I guess, from any company. Really, it's about creating the relationships with the companies that you trust and working with the smaller guys as well. So I think a lot of what I did was create the relationship with Rocky Mountain, was create relationships with smaller companies first and
Hmm,
prove to these bigger companies like Rocky Mountain that you can be an asset for them,
interesting.
really, through working with other companies. So yeah, it was one of those things where I had just basically, you put your head down and do the work. And I wanted to reach out to them for the longest time, and they ended up reaching out to me, which was really cool. So
Yeah, that is
yeah.
cool.
Hmm.
it Have you always had that mindset? Because like I specifically remember two posts that you did during your Harley days. You sat on two Indian motorcycles. The post to me was either one of two things. One, when I first saw it, I was like, you just bought one. So you're like, yeah, look, this bike I just bought. But then like the next post was another one. And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So either two things, either one, you were working at the dealership at the time,
Hmm.
or the other is you were building a relationship with that dealership. And so you had somewhat of a following or some people knew you, so you wanted to create some content for them. So what was that about?
Yeah, so that's a great question, actually. So that was just something that we had family ties to that dealership,
Oh,
and that family has ties to the Indian brand. So even though that I was a Harley person, I was definitely not impartial to the Indian brand as well. But I wish I could say more about that in terms of working with a brand in that way. But yeah, it was just, family ties to the dealership.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Greg, it's been awesome hanging out with you today. I can't wait. I would like to do another one with you. I'd like
Yeah.
to work on, I mean, the next one, do it in person, of course. As things progress, we'll start doing things in person.
Yeah. I feel like we just touched the tip
Oh
of the
yeah.
iceberg, you
Yeah,
know?
I've learned more and more. I know a lot of people love podcasts and I've heard it more than once. That people want long form podcasts.
Mhm.
But I was just talking to a manufacturer the other day of snow bike kits, and they're like, for us as a brand, we don't want to be on a podcast for 2 hours or 3 hours. We don't want that. Or they would rather do like a short 45-minute clip, and they say that's perfect for us. That's what we want. But I get a lot of people consuming the podcast to say, I wish you could have spent maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours with that guest, and I
Yeah.
could have gotten a lot more out of it. Though my numbers definitely don't reflect that. So it's like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, exactly. So it's tough for me working on these bikes, especially like the bike build, more entertaining type content that I do. They're a little bit longer videos, especially with, for example, scrolling through Instagram, you see these reels which are like 10 seconds, 30 seconds, sometimes a minute. It's hard for someone to sit down and watch even like a 20-minute video, half hour, 45-minute video, let alone an hour and a half. So I definitely understand that struggle. So with my videos personally, I've been trying to get them down to be a little bit more consumable for people and not having them as long. But the struggle is real when you
Yeah,
when you say
100%.
battling the long form videos compared to short form.
Yeah, 100%. I'm excited. We're gonna get this one out on YouTube. That's the
Awesome.
goal moving forward. We're gonna be doing a lot more quality versus quantity. So I'm
Yeah, I'm
excited to
glad
see
that
where
we
we
did
go.
the video as well. So
Yep, we're gonna do a video. So that's why we're doing it. So, Greg,
great.
thanks so much, my friend. Let's have you drop your handles where people can find you.
Yeah, my handle is at Greg Hitchko on Instagram. So GregHitchko. Just my name. And then you can just search my name on YouTube as well, Greg Hitchko. I don't have like a brand name or a company name. I kind of just did the same thing that Cameron Niemela does is his name is kind of his brand. I know there's others that use a brand name,
Sure.
but I think just my name is great right now. So they can put a face to the name.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so
Yeah.
everybody, if you haven't already been following Greg, go ahead and follow Greg. He's got some great content, and you won't be disappointed, especially around the older two-stroke stuff. So
Yep.
it's great stuff. All right, Greg, thanks so much. We'll talk to
All
you
right.
later.
Thank you, Colton. Appreciate it.
Yep, no problem. Bye.